Sir, if you don't move, I'm calling security. Elijah Carter stands frozen in the airplane aisle. His boarding pass says first class, seat 3A. The flight attendant's trembling hand says he doesn't belong. Around him, phones rise like weapons. Eyes turn away. A white passenger whispers, "Just do what she says, man. It's not worth it." Elijah could end this with one sentence. He's not just any passenger. He's the right hand to a billionaire. One name. One phone call. It's over. But his phone buzzes with a message that changes everything. Don't intervene. Let it play out. His own employer. Watching. Testing. Turning his humiliation into an experiment. Then something happens no one expects. An elderly white man stands up. I'll switch seats with him. The cabin goes silent. And Elijah does something that shocks everyone. He says no. What happened in that galley changed 5 lives forever. But here's what haunts me. If doing the right thing changes nothing, is it still worth doing? Can you inherit power from a system that just broke you? And when the cameras stop rolling and the hashtags fade, who are you when no one's performing anymore? This is the story of a flight that never made the news. But maybe it should have. Stay until the end. Because the real choice? Kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and it doesn't cost anything. But it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video. Elijah Carter learned long ago how to disappear in plain sight. Not the kind of disappearing that comes from fear, but the kind born of discipline, of knowing exactly how much of yourself to reveal, and when. He walked through airports the way some men walk through prayer, quietly, deliberately, without asking for attention. This morning, though, something felt different. The terminal was the same, fluorescent lights humming overhead, flattening faces, bleaching warmth from skin. The same burnt coffee smell. The same impatient rustling of travelers who'd been awake too long. But Elijah's chest felt tight. Not anxiety. Not quite. More like the body's early warning system, picking up on something the mind hadn't processed yet. He checked his phone as he walked. 3 missed calls from his employer, Edmund Cross. No messages. That was unusual. Edmund was precise with communication. Voicemails time-stamped, emails numbered, expectations clear. 3 calls in 20 minutes meant something had shifted. Elijah considered calling back, then decided against it. Whatever it was could wait. The flight was short. By the time he landed, Edmund would have either resolved it or moved on to the next crisis. That was how their relationship worked. Edmund created problems, Elijah made them disappear. 22 years. Not once had Elijah failed him. He scanned his boarding pass at the gate. First class. Seat 3A. The scanner beeped green. As he stepped onto the jet bridge, his phone buzzed. A text from Edmund. When you land, we need to talk about succession. Elijah stopped walking. Succession. The word hung there, heavy with implication. Edmund was 73, brilliant, paranoid, and showing signs of something he'd never shown before. Vulnerability. Last month, he'd forgotten a meeting. 2 weeks ago, he'd called Elijah Marcus, the name of his first aide, dead 15 years. Elijah pocketed the phone and kept walking. Inside the aircraft, the cabin felt compressed. Low ceiling, tight rows, passengers already jostling for space. First class was emptier, quieter, but the air felt charged somehow. He turned left into the cabin. That's when Marissa Vale noticed him. She stood near the galley, one hand resting on the counter, the other pressed against her temple like she was warding off a headache. Her uniform was crisp, but her face told a different story. Exhaustion carved into the lines around her eyes, tension pulling at the corners of her mouth. She'd been a flight attendant for 19 years. Long enough to know the job. Long enough to hate parts of it. This morning, she'd woken at 3:47 a.m. to a text from her supervisor. 3rd complaint this month. Tighten standards, or we'll need to discuss alternatives. The complaint had been about her allowing an economy passenger to use the first-class bathroom during a medical emergency. Standards, apparently, didn't include compassion. Now Marissa watched Elijah approach, and something in her tightened. Not suspicion exactly, but a kind of defensive anticipation. She'd been conditioned by 1,000 moments like this. Passengers who didn't match expectations, who required extra scrutiny, who might become problems. She didn't think of it as profiling. She thought of it as experience. Elijah reached his row. Someone was struggling with an overhead bin. He waited, hands folded loosely in front of him, breathing slow and even. Marissa stepped closer. "Sir," she said, voice measured. "Can I see your boarding pass?" Elijah turned, surprised but polite. He reached into his jacket and handed it over. She studied it longer than necessary. "This seat is reserved," she said. Elijah smiled faintly. "Yes. For me." Marissa's jaw tightened. Around them, movement slowed. A woman across the aisle paused mid-conversation. Someone behind Elijah shifted their weight, impatient. "I need to verify something," Marissa said. "Please step aside." "For what reason?" Elijah asked. His tone was calm, almost gentle. She hesitated. "There's been confusion about seat assignments." "Has there?" "Not a question." Marissa's cheeks flushed. "Sir, people are trying to board." Phones came out. Not all at once. One here. One there. Casual, almost unconscious. Elijah glanced past her down the aisle. Eyes slid away from his. A man 2 rows back suddenly found his seatbelt fascinating. A woman stared fixedly at the safety card. He felt the familiar tightening in his chest, the warning sign. His heart beat faster, though his face remained composed. He could end this. One sentence. One name. Instead, he said nothing. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Marissa inhaled sharply. "Sir, I'm going to need you to wait in the jetway until we sort this out." "I'm not going anywhere," Elijah said quietly. Her hand trembled slightly as she pressed her earpiece. "I need support in first class," she murmured. A passenger behind Elijah muttered, "Jesus Christ." Another voice, quieter. "Just do what she says, man. It's not worth it." Elijah felt heat rise under his skin. Memory layered itself over the moment. Other rooms, other eyes, other judgments. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen. "Edmund, don't react. Let it happen." Elijah stared at the message. "Elijah, what?" "Edmund, you heard me. I need to see how systems fail when you don't intervene. Stay in character." "Elijah, this isn't a fucking experiment." "Edmund, everything is. Call me when you land." The message ended with a period. Edmund only used periods when the discussion was over. Elijah's throat tightened. For 22 years, he'd absorbed Edmund's chaos, smoothed his messes, made impossible situations disappear. And now Edmund wanted to watch him suffer to prove a point about institutional failure? He slipped the phone back into his pocket. Something had changed in him. Not anger, something colder. Clearer. If Edmund wanted to see how systems failed, Elijah would show him. But not the way Edmund expected. Marissa returned with a younger flight attendant, a nervous-looking woman with kind eyes and too bright lipstick. "Sir," Marissa said, louder now, "if you don't comply, I'll have to call security." The cabin noise dropped to a hush. Then a seatbelt clicked open. Tom Brennan rose slowly from his seat 3 rows back. He was tall, broad-shouldered in a way that suggested he used to be stronger and still remembered how. His white hair was neatly combed. His face was lined but open. "I'll switch with him," Tom said. A murmur rippled through the cabin. Marissa turned sharply. "Sir, please sit down." Tom didn't. He stepped into the aisle instead, placing himself between Marissa and Elijah. "I don't need first class," Tom said. "Let him have the seat." Elijah looked at Tom, really looked at him, and felt something unexpected, not gratitude but irritation. This man didn't know him, didn't know what this moment meant. He was performing goodness for an audience, turning Elijah's humiliation into his own redemption story. "I don't need your seat," Elijah said, voice tight. Tom blinked, confused. "I'm just trying to." "I know what you're trying to do," Elijah interrupted. "And I'm telling you, I don't need it." Tom's face flushed. "I'm trying to help. By making me look like someone who needs rescuing." Elijah's voice was still quiet, but something sharp had entered it. "By turning this into a story where you get to be the hero." The cabin went dead silent. Tom's mouth opened. Closed. "That's not, isn't it?" Elijah asked. Tom stood there, frozen between offense and shame, while phones captured every second. Marissa seized the moment. "Gentlemen, both of you need to sit down. Now." Neither moved. In first class, Julian Cross watched the confrontation unfold with the cool assessment of someone running calculations. He'd recognized Elijah immediately. Hard not to, Julian had spent 6 months courting Edmund Cross for a partnership deal worth $800 million. He'd sat through 3 dinners where Elijah hovered in the background, silent and essential. Julian knew exactly who Elijah was. He also knew exactly what intervening would cost him. Edmund Cross was notorious for testing loyalty in oblique ways. If Julian stepped in to help Elijah, would Edmund see it as compassion or manipulation? If he stayed silent, would Edmund respect his discretion or despise his cowardice? Julian pulled out his phone and opened his voice recorder. He hit record. Then he slipped in his earbuds and pretended to work. In the cockpit, Captain Daniel Rhodes took the call with growing disbelief. "Say that again," he said flatly. The voice on the other end repeated itself, calm, precise, utterly serious. "You want me to delay takeoff," Rhodes said, "so you can observe how my crew handles a passenger conflict." "Correct. And you're telling me this passenger is—" Rhodes trailed off as the name registered. "Jesus Christ," he muttered. "Captain Rhodes, I'm not asking you to endanger anyone. I'm asking you to let your procedures work as designed." "My procedures," Rhodes said slowly, "don't include using passengers as lab rats." "Then perhaps your procedures need examination." The line went dead. Rhodes sat there, gripping the controls, jaw clenched so tight his teeth ached. He'd been flying for 26 years. He'd landed planes with failed engines, talked suicidal passengers down, navigated storms that should have killed everyone on board. He'd never felt more powerless than in this moment. He pressed the intercom. "Marissa Galley." Now. In the aisle, the standoff had calcified into something uglier. Tom still stood there, face flushed, looking between Elijah and Marissa like he'd walked into a trap he didn't understand. "I was just trying to do the right thing," Tom said quietly. "The right thing," Elijah repeated, "would have been standing up when it cost you something, not when it made you feel good." Tom flinched like he'd been slapped. "Elijah." A woman's voice, calm and sharp. Elijah turned. Dr. Simone Hart stood in the aisle of business class, arms folded, expression unreadable. She wore a charcoal suit that looked expensive and practical. Her eyes were intelligent and unimpressed. "You're making a mistake," she said. "Am I?" "Yes." She stepped closer. "Because you're punishing the wrong person." She gestured at Tom. "He's not your enemy. He's just clumsy." Then she looked at Marissa. "And she's not your enemy either. She's just scared." "Then who is?" Elijah asked. Dr. Hart smiled without warmth. "The people who aren't here. The ones who designed the system that put you both in this position." She let that sit. "But you can't punish them," she continued. "So you're settling for whoever's in reach." Elijah felt the truth of it land, sharp and unwelcome. Marissa's voice cracked. "I just want everyone to sit down." Captain Rhodes appeared then, uniform crisp, expression thunderous. "Galley," he said. "All of you. Now." The galley felt smaller with 6 people crammed into it. Rhodes closed the curtain, looked at each of them in turn. "I've been ordered," he said slowly, "to let this play out, to observe how things break down without intervention." Silence. "I'm not doing that," Rhodes continued, "because I'm not a sociologist and this isn't a fucking study." He looked at Elijah. "You're Elijah Carter. You worked for Edmund Cross. And someone, probably Edmund, thought it would be interesting to see what happens when you don't pull rank." Elijah's jaw tightened. "So here's what's going to happen," Rhodes said. "We're going to have an honest conversation. Not because it'll fix anything, but because I'm tired of pretending these moments don't matter." He turned to Marissa. "You profiled him." Her face crumpled. "I didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," Rhodes interrupted. "You looked at him and made a decision based on what you assumed. Own it." Marissa's hands shook. "I was scared." "Of what?" Dr. Hart asked, voice sharp. "Be specific." Marissa's eyes filled with tears. "Of making a mistake. Of losing my job. Of—" She stopped. "Of him," Dr. Hart finished. Marissa nodded miserably. "Why?" Dr. Hart pressed. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." The silence that followed was excruciating. Finally, Marissa whispered. "Because he looked like he didn't belong. And I've been taught my whole life to notice when things don't fit." The honesty of it hit like a physical blow. Rhodes turned to Tom. "And you?" Tom swallowed hard. "I thought I was helping." "But you weren't," Elijah said. "You were performing." Tom's face reddened. "That's not fair. Isn't it?" Elijah's voice was quiet now, tired. "You stood up when cameras were watching. When would you have stood up if they weren't?" Tom opened his mouth. Closed it. The answer hung between them, unspoken. Julian shifted uncomfortably in the corner, phone still recording in his pocket. Dr. Hart noticed. "You're Julian Cross," she said. "Edmund's nephew." Julian went pale. "And you're recording this," she continued. He froze. "Why?" she asked. Julian's throat worked. "Insurance." "Against what?" "Against—" He trailed off. "I don't know." "Yes, you do," Dr. Hart said. "Against being held accountable for not doing anything." Julian looked at the floor. Rhodes exhaled slowly. This is what we've become, he said. People recording each other's failures instead of preventing them. No one spoke. Then Elijah said, very quietly, I was told to let this happen. Everyone looked at him. By Edmund, Elijah continued. He wanted to see if anyone would do the right thing when it cost them something. He looked at Tom. You tried. I'm sorry I threw that back at you. Tom's eyes glistened. But, Elijah added, he was right. No one did. Because doing the right thing isn't about standing up. It's about standing up before it becomes a spectacle. The weight of that settled over them. Dr. Hart spoke first. So what now? Elijah thought about Edmund's message. About 22 years of service. About succession. Now, he said, we decide what story this becomes. He looked at Rhodes. Can you delay the flight? How long? However long it takes. If you're enjoying this story, kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and it doesn't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video. The curtain stays closed. For the first time in her career, Marissa doesn't know what happens next. She's been trained for medical emergencies, unruly passengers, even hijacking scenarios. But honest conversation? That's not in the manual. I need to understand something, Elijah says, looking at each of them. Before we leave this galley, I need to know what you actually want from this moment. Tom shifts his weight. I just wanted to help. No, Elijah says, not unkindly. You wanted to feel like you helped. There's a difference. Tom's jaw tightens. For a moment, it looks like he might argue. Then his shoulders sag. My daughter, he says quietly. She's a public defender. Handles juvenile cases. Kids who look like... He gestures vaguely at Elijah. Like they've already been judged. He pauses. Last Christmas, she told me about a case. 15-year-old black kid, honor student, arrested for matching a description. She asked me what I would have done if I'd seen it happen. If I would have said something. His voice cracks. I told her of course I would. And she looked at me like she knew I was lying. The confession lands heavy. I wasn't standing up for you, Tom continues. I was trying to prove something to a daughter who wasn't even watching. Elijah absorbs this. It doesn't make him feel better. But it makes Tom real. Dr. Hart turns to Julian. Your turn. Julian's face is pale, slick with sweat. His hand hovers near his pocket, where the phone is recording. Turn it off, Rhodes says. I wasn't. Turn it off. Julian pulls out the phone. His thumb hovers over the screen. Then he does something that surprises everyone. He doesn't stop the recording. He deletes it entirely. Edmund told me last month, Julian says slowly, that family doesn't mean anything without proof of loyalty. That blood is just biology unless you earn your place. He looks at Elijah. I've spent 6 months trying to prove I'm worthy of his name. And the first real test I get, I hide. He laughs bitterly. You know what's fucked up? I deleted the recording because I realized it proved exactly what I am. Not smart. Not strategic. Just scared. Dr. Hart studies him. What did you think would happen if you helped? That he'd see it as manipulation, Julian says. That I'd lose everything I've worked for. And now? Julian meets her gaze. I think I already lost it. I just didn't know until now. The silence that follows feels different, less hostile, more exhausted. Marissa wipes her eyes. I grew up in Dearborn, she says suddenly. Michigan. My dad worked at Ford. Good union job until the plant closed. No one interrupts. After that, we moved to a smaller town. Whiter. My mom cleaned houses. She'd come home and complain about the families she worked for. How messy they were. How entitled. Marissa's voice drops. But she'd also say things like, at least they pay on time. The other neighborhoods. And she'd trail off like I was supposed to understand. She looks at Elijah. I learned to be afraid before I knew why. And by the time I was old enough to question it, the fear was already woven in. She takes a shaky breath. When I saw you, I didn't think, this man doesn't belong. I felt it. Like a reflex. And I'm so tired of feeling things I don't want to feel. Elijah feels something shift in his chest. Not forgiveness, but recognition. This is what systems do. They don't just create oppression. They create people who perpetuate it without meaning to, who hate themselves for it, who still can't stop. I can't absolve you, Elijah says finally. That's not mine to give. Marissa nods, tears streaming freely. But I can tell you this, Elijah continues. The fear you're talking about? I live on the other side of it. Every day. Every room I walk into. He pauses. And I'm tired too. Rhodes clears his throat. So where does that leave us? Dr. Hart speaks up. I'll tell you where it leaves you. Right back where you started. Except now you can't pretend you don't know. She looks at each of them. Marissa, you can't unknow what you just admitted. Tom, you can't unknow that your courage had an audience. Julian, you can't unknow that you chose silence when it mattered. She turns to Elijah. And you can't unknow that the man you've served for 22 years turned your dignity into a case study. Elijah feels the words hit like a fist. Because she's right. Edmund didn't just betray him. He made him complicit in his own humiliation. What would you do? Elijah asks her. Dr. Hart smiles, but there's no warmth in it. I'd burn it all down. But then I've never been very good at restraint. She leans against the galley counter. Here's what I know. This moment is going to leak. Someone on this plane is already texting. By tonight, there'll be a hashtag. By tomorrow, think pieces. She looks at Julian. Your recording might be gone, but trust me, someone else got footage. Julian's face drains further. The question isn't whether this becomes public, Dr. Hart continues. The question is what story gets told. And who controls it? She looks at Elijah. Right now you have a choice. You can let them make you into a symbol, noble victim who took the high road. Or you can be honest about what this actually cost you. Which is? Elijah asks. Your faith, Dr. Hart says simply. In the man you work for. In the idea that invisibility equals safety. In the belief that if you do everything right, you'll be protected. The truth of it settles like ash. Rhodes checks his watch. We're 23 minutes past scheduled departure. I need a decision. Elijah closes his eyes. He thinks about Edmund's text. About succession. About 22 years of making himself useful by making himself invisible. When he opens them, he looks at Rhodes. Let everyone board. Make an announcement that there was a brief security review. Routine. Nothing more. Marissa's head snaps up. What? You heard me, Elijah says. But, Tom starts. Elijah cuts him off. You want redemption? Then live with this. Don't perform contrition for cameras. Don't write essays about what you learned. Just sit with it. He looks at Marissa. You want absolution? You won't get it from me. But maybe you'll get something better. The memory of who you were in this moment. Let it follow you. Then to Julian. And you? You want your uncle's approval? You won't get it this way. But now you know what it costs to chase it. Dr. Hart's eyebrows rise. You're protecting them. No, Elijah says. I'm protecting myself. Because if this becomes news, I become public property. Everyone gets to have an opinion about my pain. Everyone gets to tell me how I should have handled it. He straightens. I'm choosing privacy over performance. And that's a choice I get to make. Rhodes nods slowly. All right. But what about Edmund? Elijah's smile is cold. Let me worry about Edmund. The curtain opens. Passengers look up expectantly. Phones ready, hungry for resolution. Rhodes steps into the aisle. Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. We had to verify some security protocols. Everything is resolved. We'll be departing shortly. The disappointment is palpable. People crane their necks, looking for drama that's been denied them. Elijah returns to his seat. 3A still his. Tom sits across the aisle. They don't look at each other. Julian stays in first class, but 3 rows back. He stares at his laptop without seeing it. As the plane taxis, Marissa moves through her service routine mechanically. When she reaches Elijah's row, she hesitates. Anything to drink? She asks, voice barely audible. Water, Elijah says. Thank you. It's such a normal exchange that it feels surreal. She brings him water with a hand that still trembles slightly. The plane lifts off. Elijah stares out the window as the ground falls away. He pulls out his phone. Elijah, I know what you did. 3 dots appear. Disappear. Appear again. Edmund and... Elijah, we need to talk about succession. Edmund, I thought we might. Elijah, not on your terms. On mine. The dots appear for a long time. Then, Edmund, interesting. Elijah puts the phone away. His heart is racing, but his hands are steady. For the first time in 22 years, he's not making a problem disappear. He's creating one. The flight is short. 90 minutes of enforced silence punctuated by drink service and bathroom breaks. Tom tries to catch Elijah's eye twice. Both times, Elijah looks away. Dr. Hart watches everything from business class with the detached interest of someone taking mental notes for later. Julian doesn't move from his seat once. Not even to use the bathroom. When they land, the cabin empties quickly. People rush to escape the weird tension that's been hanging in the air since departure. Elijah waits until almost everyone has gone. As he stands, Tom appears beside him. "I need to say something," Tom starts. "No," Elijah says gently. "You don't." "But Tom." Elijah's voice is firm now. "What you need is to sit with what happened. Not talk it away." Tom's mouth opens, closes. He nods once, then walks away, shoulders hunched. At baggage claim, Dr. Hart approaches. "That was interesting," she says. "What was?" Choosing silence. She tilts her head. "Most people in your position would want blood." "Blood doesn't change systems," Elijah says. "Neither does silence." "Maybe not," Elijah agrees. "But sometimes the point isn't changing the system. It's refusing to let the system use you." Dr. Hart considers this. "You know what happens next, right? Someone's going to leak this. And when they do, you won't get to control the narrative anymore." "I know. And you're okay with that?" Elijah looks at her. "I'm okay with knowing I made a choice instead of having one made for me." She nods slowly. "For what it's worth, I think you're making a mistake. But it's your mistake to make." She hands him a card. "When you're ready to burn it down, call me." Then she's gone. Elijah stands alone in baggage claim, travelers streaming past him like water around a stone. His phone rings. "Edmund." He lets it ring 4 times before answering. "Where are you?" Edmund asks. "Baggage claim." "Come to the house." "No." A pause. "Excuse me?" "I said no, Edmund. We'll meet somewhere neutral." "Elijah, I don't have time for—" "Then make time," Elijah interrupts. "Because if you want to discuss succession, we do it on equal footing. Not in your house. Not on your terms." The silence on the other end stretches long enough that Elijah wonders if Edmund hung up. Then, the Metropolitan Club. 4 o'clock. See you there. Elijah hangs up before Edmund can respond. His hand is shaking now. Not from fear. From adrenaline. From the sheer impossibility of what he just did. In 22 years, he's never said no to Edmund Cross. He retrieves his bag and heads outside. The city noise hits him like a wave. Horns, sirens, voices layered over each other in chaotic harmony. For a moment, he just stands there, letting it wash over him. Then he hails a cab. The Metropolitan Club sits in Midtown, all dark wood and old money. Elijah has been here dozens of times, always in Edmund's shadow, always taking notes, always invisible. Today, he walks through the front door alone. The maitre d' recognizes him. "Mr. Carter." Mr. Cross is waiting in the library. "Thank you." Edmund sits in a leather armchair by the window, bourbon in hand, looking every bit the aging patriarch. His white hair is perfectly combed. His suit is impeccable. He doesn't stand when Elijah enters. "Sit," Edmund says. Elijah remains standing. Edmund's eyebrow rises. "So it's like that." "It's exactly like that." Edmund studies him, then gestures to the chair across from him. "Then stand if you prefer. But you'll at least let me explain. Explain why you turned my humiliation into an experiment. Explain why I needed to know if you could survive without me." The words land differently than expected. Elijah sits slowly. "What?" Edmund takes a sip of bourbon. "I'm dying, Elijah." The room tilts. "Pancreatic cancer," Edmund continues. "Stage 4. They've given me 6 months, maybe 8. Elijah's throat closes. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I needed to see something first." Edmund leans forward. "For 22 years, you've been my fixer. My shadow. The man who makes impossible problems disappear. You've been so good at it that I forgot to ask the most important question. Which is, can you survive without my protection?" Edmund's eyes are sharp despite the illness. "Because that's what I've been giving you. Protection. Access. The weight of my name when things got difficult." He pauses. "But when I'm gone, you won't have that. You'll just be a middle-aged black man in rooms full of people who think you don't belong. And I needed to know, can you navigate that alone?" Elijah feels anger rising, hot and sharp. "So you tested me by watching me get humiliated?" "I tested you by removing my intervention," Edmund corrects. "Everything that happened on that plane was a choice made by other people. Not me. You told me not to reveal myself." "I told you not to react," Edmund says. "But you could have ended it at any moment. And you chose not to. Why?" Elijah opens his mouth. Closes it. "Why didn't he?" "Because," he says slowly, "I wanted to see what would happen if power didn't speak for me." "And what happened?" Elijah thinks of Tom, of Marissa's tears, of Julian's recording, of Dr. Hart's cold assessment. Nothing good, he admits. Exactly, Edmund says. And that's what I needed you to see. The world isn't fair, Elijah. It's not getting fairer. And when I'm gone, you'll be out here alone. He drains his bourbon. So yes, I turned your dignity into an experiment. Because I need to know if you're ready for what comes next. Which is? Edmund sets down his glass. Running everything. Elijah goes still. The foundation. The investments. The holdings. All of it. Edmund's voice is steady. Julian's brilliant with numbers, but he has no spine. My daughter would sell it off in pieces. My son hasn't spoken to me in a decade. He looks directly at Elijah. You're the only one who knows how all the pieces fit together. You're the only one I trust. You have a funny way of showing trust. I have a practical way, Edmund corrects. Trust without testing is just hope. And I'm too old for hope. Elijah stands, walks to the window. Outside, the city moves, indifferent, relentless, alive. What if I say no, he asks. Then everything gets liquidated and donated, Edmund says simply. And 22 years of work disappears. That's not fair. No, Edmund agrees. But it's honest. Elijah turns back to face him. You want me to take over your empire after you just proved that empires don't protect people like me? I want you to take it over because of that, Edmund says. Because you understand what it costs. Because you won't forget. He leans back. Most people with power think it makes them safe. You know better. Elijah feels the weight of it. The offer, the trap, the impossible choice between walking away and taking on the thing that just betrayed him. I need time, he says. You have until I'm dead, Edmund says drily. Which, statistically, is about 7 months. If you're enjoying this story, use them wisely. Kindly do us a favor and subscribe to our channel. It is free and it doesn't cost anything, but it means the world to us. We're just a small channel trying to grow. Thank you, and back to the video. Elijah leaves the club in a daze. He walks for blocks without direction, letting the city crowd press around him. Anonymous. Invisible. His phone buzzes constantly. Messages from unknown numbers. Screenshots from social media. It's already starting. Someone on the plane posted something. The story is leaking. He ignores them all. Instead, he thinks about what Edmund said. About survival. About what happens when protection disappears. He thinks about Marissa, who'd been taught to fear before she knew why. About Tom, performing courage for ghosts. About Julian, so desperate for approval he'd forgotten why he wanted it. And about himself, so practiced at disappearing that he'd forgotten how to be visible on his own terms. His phone rings. Unknown number. He answers anyway. Mr. Carter? A woman's voice. Young. Nervous. This is Kendra Williams from The Atlantic. I'm writing about what happened on your flight this morning, and I was hoping. How did you get this number? Someone forwarded me. Look, I just want to hear your side of. Elijah hangs up. 3 more calls come in the next 5 minutes. He silences his phone. By the time he reaches his apartment, the sun is setting. The city is painted in shades of gold and gray. Inside, he pours himself a drink, bourbon like Edmund's, and sits by the window. He pulls out Dr. Hart's card. He doesn't call. Not yet. But he keeps it. 2 weeks later, Elijah boards another flight. Different airline. Different route. But the same ritual. Scan boarding pass, turn left into first class, find his seat. The crew is younger, more diverse. They move with practiced efficiency, but there's something else, a carefulness. Like they've all been briefed. A flight attendant approaches. Early 20s, black, hijab perfectly pinned. Mr. Carter? She asks quietly. He looks up, surprised she knows his name. We were told you might be flying with us, she continues. And I just wanted to say, we're trying to do better. She says it earnestly, like she means it. Elijah nods. Thank you. She smiles uncertainly and moves on. As the plane boards, Elijah watches passengers stream past. He wonders how many of them saw the viral posts. How many recognize him? How many are disappointed he's not performing trauma for their consumption? The flight takes off smoothly. Somewhere over Ohio, his phone buzzes with a message that actually breaks through his silence. Julian, I resigned from the board. Told Edmund I wasn't ready. He didn't argue. Then another. Julian, I don't know if that was brave or cowardly. Probably both. Elijah stares at the message for a long time before responding. Elijah, probably both. Most honest things are. An hour later, another message. This one from Tom. Tom, my daughter asked why I've been quiet lately. I told her about the flight. She said, So you finally learn people don't need rescuing. They need witnesses. I think she's right. Elijah doesn't respond. There's nothing to say. As the plane descends, he thinks about Edmund's offer. About power. About what it means to inherit a system built on the very thing that just broke him. He still doesn't have an answer, but he has 7 months to find one. When the plane lands, Elijah doesn't rush to exit. He waits until the cabin empties, then walks out slowly. At baggage claim, he sees Marissa. She's not in uniform. Just jeans and a sweater, looking smaller somehow. She's picking up luggage, checking her phone normal. Their eyes meet. For a moment, neither moves. Then Marissa does something unexpected. She doesn't look away. Doesn't pretend. Just stands there, holding his gaze. It's not an apology. Not quite. It's acknowledgement. Elijah nods once. She nods back. Then they both turn away and disappear into separate crowds. Outside, the air is cold and sharp. Elijah hails a cab and gives Edmund's address. It's time to talk about succession. Not on Edmund's terms. On his own. Whatever that means. The cab moves through evening traffic, headlights bleeding across rain-slicked streets. Inside, Elijah sits perfectly still, Dr. Hart's card between his fingers like a talisman he hasn't decided whether to use. His phone vibrates against his thigh. Another message. Another journalist. Another person who wants to turn his pain into content. He silences it without looking. Elijah Vio. People keep asking what I'll do. If I'll accept. If I'll burn it down. If I'll forgive. As if there's a right answer. As if dignity and survival don't sometimes pull in opposite directions. The mansion comes into view, stone and glass, lit from within like a cathedral to accumulated power. The cab slows. Elijah Vio. Edmund gave me 22 years of access. And one moment of absolute clarity. That access was never protection. It was permission to pretend. The cab stops. Engine idling. Elijah stares at the front door. Edmund is behind it, dying, waiting to pass on an empire built on systems that just prove they don't protect people like him. Elijah Vio. They want to know if I'll take his throne. If I'll use power to dismantle power. If I believe that's even possible. His hand reaches for the door handle. Elijah Vio. I don't know yet. I only know that whatever I choose, someone will call it survival and someone else will call it surrender. He opens the door. Elijah Vio. And maybe they'll both be right. If you enjoyed this story, don't let it end here. Subscribe to the channel for more emotionally powerful billionaire romances where silence hides secrets, love challenges power, and one brave choice changes everything. New stories every week. Your subscription helps these stories keep coming.